Alright, in this lesson we're going to cover chapter 13, which deals with editing features. And we're already pretty familiar with some of the options available to us, so let me just start a new part. And what the primary focus of this chapter is looking at this window right here, this Part Navigator. In the Part Navigator, we have several different components that I'm going to explain, and you may have seen me already done this, and you've already done this yourself, more than likely. But let's go through and let's talk about this Part Navigator. Let's talk also about modifying some other features that maybe you may not have been able to modify in the past, and I can show you some of those here. Okay, so what I'm going to start with is just a sketch, this same sketch we've been drawing 100 times of this stair-looking shape. Okay, and I'm going to give it the dimensions that it has in our textbook. You can change the dimensions or you can leave it. The dimensions are not necessarily so important here, as it is going to be the concept. So once I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and extrude this shape 3 inches. And I'm going to go ahead and put a boss on the top of this. And I'm going to give the boss the dimensions of 1 inch diameter, 1 inch height. And I'm going to want to have a distance of 1 inch from this corner. Okay. And let's say 1.5 inches from this corner. Okay, so that should center our boss feature. So a question that some of you have is, I think some in class, is it's a little bit strange to modify this boss feature, maybe some other features that you've seen. A lot of you have been able to figure out that in the Part Navigator, we can double click on one of these, and we can modify one of the parameters that we have already set. Okay? What I want to do is I want to modify the geometry of this boss feature, and there's 2 ways I can do it. I can right click on this boss feature, and I can go to Edit Parameters, okay? Or I can go to Edit, Feature, Edit Parameters. And I'm going to go ahead and click that. Again, that's Edit, Feature, Edit Parameters. And I'm going to go ahead and click that. I'm just going to say, what do you want to edit? I want to edit the boss, and I'll click OK. And it's going to give me 2 options here. I'm going to go ahead and select the Feature dialog. Okay, and it's going to give me an option to change some of the dimensions of it. Let's say I want the diameter now to be 1/2 inch, and I want the height to be 2 inches. And I'll click OK, and I'll click OK again. And once I click Apply, you'll see that the change has been made now in my shape, where I've been able to now modify the dimensions of my boss feature. Okay, so now let me show you how to change the position of the boss feature once we've already placed it. So all you need to do for that is just go to Edit, Feature, and we can go to Edit Positioning for this one. And we'll select the boss in this case again. So in this case, let's go ahead, instead of adding a dimension or deleting it, let's just edit one of the dimensions we already have. And we can just simply select it. So let's say for this one, I want this distance to be, instead of 1, let's say 1.5. And this one, let me set to a distance of 1. And I'll click OK. I'll click OK again, and I'll click Apply. And you see now that the boss feature now has moved positions. So this may be helpful for you, for those of you who may not have known not only to move a boss feature, but to move another feature, maybe a hole or a pocket or some other type of feature that you've added. Now let me talk a little bit about this next section, deleting, suppressing, and reordering of features. So deleting a feature is something that we already are pretty familiar with. So we can go to Edit, Delete, and we can simply select the object that we want to delete, right? That's simple enough. So some of you probably, I'm sure, have already explored this. If not, you can give it a try as far as deleting it. There's several different ways to do it, but that's one of them. We can always go here, and you can right-click on this boss selection, and you can right-click and select Delete, and we'll delete your feature. So I'm going to go ahead and undo that. Next thing I want to talk about is suppressing and unsuppressing features. And so the delete feature basically just deletes it. It still acknowledges that it was there, but it deletes it. Suppressing is something that lets you pretend that it's still there. So we still have it in our Part Navigator menu. But instead, what we're going to do is we're going to act like it's deleted or act like it never existed. To do that, we can right-click on the option we want to suppress, and we can click the Suppress option here. So when we suppress it, essentially it's disappearing, and it's acting as if it never existed. Another thing we can do is we can go to Edit, Feature, and we can click Suppress or Unsuppress from that menu as well. Simply, if you want to unselect this or unsuppress it, we simply can right-click it and click Unsuppress, and this feature will appear again. Okay, so that is something that allows us to get rid of or hide a particular object. Now the next thing I want to talk about is the ordering of objects in parent and child relationships. So parent and child relationships are essentially relationships that are dependent on one another. So for example, and let me show you this in our Part Navigator window here. When I click Sketch, you will see that the extrude has turned blue. So when I click Sketch, extrude has turned blue. That is because extrude is a child relationship of Sketch. If I take away my Sketch, these other dependent features, boss and extrude, have now been removed because they are dependent. They are like children of this shape. So extrude, you see that red, Sketch is red. That means it's not dependent on extrude. But boss, you can see, is dependent on extrude. And if we select boss, you can see that extrude is not dependent on boss. So those are some features that are dependent on one another. Now what I want to do to kind of illustrate how we can use this is I want to go to the bottom of this, and I'm going to go to Insert, Offset Scale, and I'm going to shell the bottom of this 1/10 of an inch. Okay, so let's go ahead and click OK. So I've applied a shell to this stair step, and what you see is that this shell has been applied all the way through the base of this and all the way through the boss. Well, what if I didn't want that? What if I wanted the shell to only be applied to this inner part, not the boss? I wanted the boss to be a solid object still. This can be changed by simply reordering the way we did this. So in the computer, the history has it that I drew my sketch, I did an extrude, I created a boss, and then I created a shell. But if I wanted this to be filled back in, all I would need to do is right-click on my shell option, click Reorder Before, and I can click Boss. So what this has done is it's changed the order in which I've done this. So I've changed the order and clicked that the shell has occurred. So as far as the computer is concerned, I extruded it, then I shelled it, then I added the boss. So the boss is still a solid form. Likewise, I can reorder after the boss to put it back to how it was originally. So if you guys really want to become a NX 7.5 expert, and as you start becoming and doing more advanced sketches, you'll see that these parent-child relationships and ordering and reordering of these shapes can make a real difference, in the way that the way you're going to be able to manipulate your geometries. So that's chapter 13. I'll come back and we'll start our next section as soon as we've taken our exam, and we'll start talking about some more advanced options and going towards the end of the course type lesson. So I'll talk to you again soon.